Welcome to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today here with my guest, Jeff Squires, President and CEO of the PEI Brewing Company. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Pleasure to be here.
So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about the complement of beers you have here at the PEI Brewing Company.
Sure. We kind of have a beer for every occasion and every type of taste palette here at the PEI Brewing Company. We have our five core, what we call our Gahan portfolio beers, our Island Red, our Sir John A. Honeywheat, our 1772 IPA, our Sydney Street Stout, and as well as our Iron Bridge Brown. And that's what we call our Gahan portfolio. And then as well, we have our only canned product presently here at the PEI Brewing Company. That's Beach Chair Lager.
Okay, and these are available at local liquor stores and throughout the Maritimes
Definitely.
At the moment?
Very, we have a great following of people here in PEI who enjoy our beers. Within the last year, we're shipping product to New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Alberta, and BC. So we're starting to export that great PEI name on great beer products around Canada.
Awesome. So with the different varieties and the different stouts and lagers, is there a really different technique taken as far as the brewing goes of the different brands?
For sure. Our lagers is just what the name implies. A lager means to age longer, and the aging process for our Beach Chair Lager, it ages in the fermenter for 21 days, as compared to our ales, which age in the fermentation process for 14 days, with the exception of our IPA, which is a 12-day fermentation process. So it's different depending upon the recipe and the type of beer that you're making and brewing. Okay.
Now in today's show, we're going to do some recipes with different beers, and we're going to use the Beach Chair for some mussels.
Yep.
We're going to use the stout for some wings. Is there any particular use you like to see for them?
Well, I think it's all the creativity of the chefs and some of the creations that you guys and girls like to make. But I think the Beach Chair Lager is a natural fit for mussels. Mussels tend to be a very popular seasonal menu product here in PEI. I know they are sold year-round as well. But the Beach Chair Lager and that lightness feel to it really adds to the cooking of the mussels. And the stout, there's a lot of flavor in our Sydney Street Stout. There's a slight chocolate finish at the back of your throat when you finish that beer, which I think was a great combination you're talking about on the chicken wing.
Okay, awesome. And the reds, I like a good dark red. So is there a major difference between the stout and the red a little bit?
Definitely a major difference in the red. The different hops that are used. The red has a lot of any of our beers. Again, it's part of the craft brewing industry. Yep. They're made with a lot of flavor. And our red has definitely a distinct flavor again, which would separate it very much from the stout. The stout is a heavier, more filling, more of a chocolate taste to finish to it. The red, you won't get that heavier type feeling to it, but you'll get a lot of the different hop flavor inside of that beer.
Okay, and you give the Beach Chair in the can and the rest are in bottles, but the Beach Chair is the only one available right now in the cans. Is that correct?
Beach Chair is the only product we have in the can right now, and maybe I'm foreshadowing a little bit. Down the road, you'll see another can product come from the PEI Brewing Company, but the Beach Chair it's a 4.5%. It's very light finish lager, whereas the Gahan portfolio is more in the crafty segment of the beer category.
Okay. And do you have a favorite or a preference on the selection of beers in front of us, or?
Well, you know what I'm going to say. I know, that's a fair question. I like them all, and I think there's a different beer for different occasions, and I know some people would call even the stout a little bit of a dessert beer. I know our Honeywheat has a very sweet finish. Our IPA has a very you can really taste the Cascade hop in our IPA. So I think there's our blueberry has become very popular as a year-round product. With it's made with some local blueberries inside of it, and has a real nice finish to it. So I think there's a beer for every different type of palate taste that's out there, and obviously that's why you have a full portfolio.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today and telling us a little bit about them. We're going to do some recipes here in a few minutes, doing some different styles with the different beers, but check it out and don't go away. I'll be right back. Kitchen Uncovered. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today we're featuring local beers from PEI Brewing Company. We're doing some quick recipes that you can do at home with your favorite beer. So, who doesn't like wings and beer? I'm going to show you a quick recipe on doing chicken wings with a glaze that you can do. We're going to feature today Sydney Street Stout in the glaze. So to make a good glaze, what you need is some flavoring. So we're going to use shallots and garlic. We're going to sweat that off in some butter in a hot pan, and then we're going to add some island honey and the stout. The honey is going to add a little bit of sweetness, and the sugars will caramelize to kind of give the sauce a little bit of more of a sticking to the wings. So we're going to put this on early because it needs a chance to saute and reduce down a little bit. Okay, so we get our pan going. We're going to start off with butter, as we always do, because we like butter. And the thing about the butter is you don't want your pan too hot because you don't want to burn the butter. We just want the nice flavor of the butter to kind of come through in the glaze and the marinade. So with the butter, we're just going to get that sweated off. Then we're going to add some shallots. We're going to add a little bit, a tablespoon or so of some garlic in there because we want to build up these flavors. So we're going to let these sweat off a little bit just to get the juices going. We don't want any caramelization because we're going to get the sugars in the honey is going to caramelize for that kind of consistency, and we're going to use the flavor of the stout. Now the reason I'm using the stout for this is because it's got a really heavy body and it's really good for the reduction and the glazing and the coating that we want on the wings. So it doesn't have any lightness. It's just a very generic and it's a good beer to use for this type of process. Okay, so nice sweating, and just to let the juices come out. We don't want any caramelization on the shallots or the garlic. Okay, the next thing we're going to add is we're going to add the honey. So some good island honey, we'll put that in there and we'll stir that around. That way it gets well blended in with the shallots and the garlic. And if you want to put some trying this at home, you had some fresh herbs, you could throw some fresh herbs in here as well, or dried herbs. But because of the cooking technique and the reducing of it, the herbs are going to burn and they're going to lose all their flavor. So we'll add those at the last if we decide to go that route. We're going to use those later in another recipe. But you can see right there, you've got the honey, and the smells in here is great with the honey and the shallots and the garlic. Then we're going to add our Sydney Stout. Nice and dark. We're going to do a couple of dozen wings, so we're going to add a bottle to this. Make sure you have one for the cook on the go too. So we're just going to let that reduce. We're not going to add any salt and pepper to that just yet because we don't want the salt to compound or reduce too much. It'll become too salty, so we'll add that later. But we just want to let that simmer and reduce to about half, and the sugars will kind of help give it a coating on the wings, and then we'll put the wings in and we'll bake those in the oven. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to marinate some steaks. Now for marinade on steaks, the stout might be a little bit too heavy or too dark a beer, so you want to use a nice something that's got some body and some nice color and flavor. So we're going to use the Island Red. We want to have it, when you marinate steaks, you do it for two reasons. You're either tenderizing it or you're adding flavor. And because we're using strip loin steaks, we're going to make sure that it's just for flavor that we're going to add. So for the marinade, kind of the same principle kind of applies. We're going to change up the flavors just a little bit. So we're going to add some shallots. And because we're making it a marinade, we're just going to use the natural oils from the flavor ingredients that we're using. So there's not really any cooking. If you wanted to, you could sweat off these shallots and garlic just so that they're not raw in your marinade. But we're going to add some extra flavors to it, and we'll cook it down later as a sauce for the plate. Okay? So a few things you need in your flavoring for marinade is you need an acid to break down the proteins, you need an oil in there for body, and you need what your main flavoring is going to be. So we have shallots and garlic. We're going to add some maple syrup this time, just to kind of change up. Using local ingredients, we're just going to change it up a little bit as far as the flavor, because we have the honey and the stout. We're going to use the maple in the marinade for the steak. Stir that around. Instead of using a vinegar, whereas a white wine or red wine vinegar might be too strong, we're going to use a little bit of fresh fruitiness. So we're going to use a little bit of lemon. We have some lemon juice here that we could use. And if you just had a half a lemon in there, you could measure it out a little bit, but that's going to add our acidity to our marinade. And we're going to add a little bit of oil, okay, just to counterbalance that out a little bit. And then we're going to add our Island Red. Okay, now when you do a marinade, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the steak has at least a couple hours to marinate. So you do this early in the day, and then when you're ready to go to the barbecue a little bit later, you take it out and you kind of do them all in the barbecue as is. We're going to also add a little bit of salt and pepper to this because we're not reducing or cooking it down. We want to add flavor, right? So a little bit of salt and pepper. We'll give it a quick little stir. And you want to check the flavor of it just to make sure that you've got a nice balance of everything, because you don't want it too acidic, but you don't want it, and you want that flavor of the beer to come through, but you want to make sure that it good balance. Okay, so what we're going to do is our glaze for our wings is just starting to come up to boil, so that needs to reduce a little bit. So we're going to take our marinade and we're going to take our nice strip loin steaks. And we're just going to lay them in a pan, okay? Just place them in a pan so they're flat, and then we're going to pour the marinade on them. We're going to let those sit in the marinade for a couple hours, and then we'll pan sear them, probably in a cast iron pan or on a char broiler if you have a char broiler at home, and we'll do them up. Then we take your marinade and we just kind of pour it over the steaks. Now what's good about this is later on, after this marinates, we're going to take this and we're going to make a quick sauce out of it for serving on the steaks. Okay? So we're just going to set that aside for now and marinate. Doesn't have to go in the refrigerator. Can kind of sit out on the counter for a couple of hours so the steaks get to relax. They absorb all that nice flavor. If you're going to do it overnight, then you could slow down the process and you could put it in the refrigerator overnight, and the steaks will just take a little bit longer to absorb more flavor. Okay, so we're going to let our sauce reduce down. Our steaks are marinating. Come right back. I'm going to show you the simplest beer batter for fish in the world. Don't go away. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today we're cooking with beer from the PEI Brewing Company. So we have our steaks marinating in the Island Red. We have our reduction for our wings, the stout that we use, the Sydney Street Stout. So that's reduced down to not quite half, and the flavors are starting to melt. So right now that's ready for us to put our wings in. So we're just going to take our wings that we have, and we're literally going to stir them into the pot with the wings to give them a nice coating. And these are fresh chicken wings that you can buy at your local grocery store. And just a little something extra you can do with them. So what you want to do is make sure you give these a nice coating. It's okay if they simmer for a minute in the stout so that they absorb all the flavor. And what we're going to do with them is once they get all coated and come up and nice and hot, we're going to put them in a roasting pan and we're going to put them in the oven. And we want to roast them in the oven at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 35 minutes until the wings are cooked. And you don't want to put a cover on them because you don't want them to steam. You want that nice caramelization and the aromas and the roasting color on the wings. So we're going to leave those there for just a few minutes. And meanwhile, we're going to show you the quickest beer batter in the world for fish or onion rings, depending on what you want to use. And what we're going to use for that is we're going to use a lighter beer. We're going to use the John A. Honey Ale, and because it gives a nice flavor, and it's not as light as a lager, but it's got a really nice flavor for this particular mix. So the first thing you need is some cracked eggs. Okay. Now, when you do beer batters, it's all about ratios. So for your average recipe, a kilo of flour, 6 eggs, and 1 beer will do a batter, okay? And then you just have to adjust the consistency as you want it. So because we have 500 mils here at the PI Brewing Company, we're gonna use not quite the whole bottle, but we're gonna start with 6 egg yolks, 6 eggs whole. And we're gonna whisk those up to kind of break them up. And this same batter works for fish or works for wing or onion rings, whatever you happen to be using, okay? And at this point, we're gonna add our John A. And we're gonna add just over half the bottle of this. And then if we add more, if we need more to thin it out later, we have it. Okay, so we'll start with that and mix that in. And then we're gonna add our flour. And you're just gonna whisk in the flour. You don't wanna have any lumps. Okay, and you want it nice and smooth, but you want to have a nice ribbon consistency to your batter so that it coats the fish reasonably well. Okay, add a little bit, get that worked in there. Okay, so we have off all the sides. Make sure you scrape down the sides, you work in the corners so that you have everything. Now, you want to look for consistency, so you want it to have the right texture, and you want it nice and smooth so that there's no lumps. So just take your whisk and lift it up, and when you go back and forth, you should be able to see a nice little ribbon left behind, okay? By the feel of it, I'm going to add a little bit more beer to this because we can. Just to thin it out just a little bit more. Okay, and that's the consistency you want right there. All right, so it's nice and smooth, no lumps. Now that should sit and rest for about 5 minutes. Okay, in the meantime, while that's resting, you prep your fish. Now we already have our halibut already portioned up. You could use haddock for this recipe, or sole, or any particular fish you like. We're using halibut because it's locally raised. We have portioned them into about 3 to 4 ounce portions, and you can cut it any way, size, shape, or form that you like. The trick about battering fish is because they're wet or have a coating on them, you want to dredge them in a little bit of flour, and then you're going to add the fish to the batter so that the batter has the flour to stick to. So when we do the onion rings, sorry, it's going to be the same type of method. All right, and if you want to season your flour to this, you can add salt and pepper to it or whatever. We're just going to add a few onion rings from Spanish onions, and because we're doing fish and onion rings, we're just going to do a couple right now and mix these in. Okay, and just like the fish, you want to add a little bit of flour to it. It'll help the batter give it something to stick to. Okay, so we have fryer temperatures coming up. Just going to set that over there. So the onion rings into the batter, and this is something you want to use your fingers for. Okay, tongs, you're not going to get the sure grip on it that you would if you just use your fingers. Just be very careful you don't dunk your fingers into the fryer because it could burn. But if you've got enough batter on them, they'll just cook anyway. So don't worry about it. All right, just waiting for. Just need the temperature of the oil to come up a little bit. We're just going to let that sit and hang out. So while we're waiting for our oil, it's about 320. We're going to wait for the oil to come up to 350. While we're waiting for that, we're going to get our wings in the oven. Okay, so we have them coming up to temperature in the pan with a nice coating of the stout glaze that we made. And we're going to dump these into a roasting pan. And like I said, 350 oven for about 35 minutes till the wings are cooked. And you want to stir them around a little bit as they're cooking so that they don't scorch or burn. You just want to have nice coating, and as it cooks, the stout will caramelize and the glaze caramelize and become nice and sticky on the wings. Okay, so those are done. We can put those in the oven now. So we have the firewood oven. Just because we have it, we can use it. At home, it's about a 350 oven that you need to put them in at home, and like I said, not covered, just so that they're ready to go. So our fryer is almost up to temperature. So we'll go back to our onion rings. Okay, and we're just going to very gently dunk the floured wings in the batter. And what you want to do is just hold them there for just a second until they start to float. Okay, and when you put them in, this is what you should get. They should float and they should be sizzling and just lightly cooking. You don't want to drop them right in and let them go because they'll sink to the bottom and they might stick. So it's good if you can hold them for a second and just let the batter start to cook, and they'll start to float in the hot oil. This is where the batter on the fingertips kind of helps out a little bit. Now we're going to take our fish. The only thing we're going to do different with our fish, we're going to season a little bit with some salt and pepper. So we get some seasoning on the fish. And very same as the wings, we're going to dredge that in some flour first. So get the fish nice and covered in the flour, and then put it in the batter. At this point, our onion rings are cooked up. Okay. And then we do our fish with the very same method. Okay, so gently set it in the pan. If you have a fryer at home, you could try this. And these can be done ahead. You can just blanch them and just to set the batter, and then they can be cooked later, finished off again for dinner, or you can cook them right through. They're ready to go. Okay, so we're going to cook up some fish, get the rest of our onion rings done. When we come right back, we're going to check on our wings and see how those steaks are doing. Don't go away. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today we're cooking with beers from the PEI Brewing Company. So we have our Island Red marinated steaks. We'll deal with those in a second. We have our Sydney Street Stout chicken wings just about ready, and we have our John Ale Honey Wheat Ale batter done and ready to serve. So let's get started. So the first thing we're doing is we're getting a pan nice and hot for our marinated steaks. If you're doing this at home in the barbecue, steaks are ready. They've been marinating in the Island Red beer marinade for a couple of hours. They're ready to go. They're full of lots of flavor. We did it for seasoning, for flavoring, not for tenderizing. But I want to make a sauce out of the marinade. When you use a marinade for sauce, it's very important that you heat it up to 160 degrees Celsius and bring it to a boil. Otherwise, you're going to have raw meat product in the sauce and you have to discard it. So if you're going to use it for a sauce, reduce it. You have to bring it up to 160 degrees Celsius. Just wanted to clarify that. So we're going to reduce it down for a sauce for the steak just to add some extra flavor. Okay? So if you're doing this at home on the barbecue, you can put the steaks right on the grill. We're going to do them in a cast iron pan just because we want to get a little bit of sizzle on there and a little bit of fond to help build some extra flavor in the sauce. Okay? So we're just going to let those sit for just a minute. Now, in the meantime, we're going to start plating our fish. So our beer battered fish that we did up, we fried it to a nice golden brown. We're going to serve it with some home fries. And these are just PEI potatoes that we cut up into home style fries and fried them up. 350 oil, same fryer oil you used for the fish and the onion rings works great. Just a few on the plate like that. And some of our nice beer battered fish. See how light that batter is? We're just going to add some fresh tarragon to that. If you have a nice salsa or tartar sauce at home for this, you can do that as well. Put it on the side. We're just going to add a little bit of lemon. Okay? Home style fish and chips. Quickest one you'll ever make. Our steaks are searing. Right, almost got it to where we want it. We're going to throw those in the brick oven here in just a second. Meanwhile, those stout wings we had on the go, we baking these in the oven for about 35 minutes. And you get really smell that stout beer coming through. And we're going to use the sauce for these because we've cooked in it. We're just going to pour this all in here. I'm going to get a better lifter. We've cooked the wings in the sauce, so that sauce is good as a dip. If you wanted to put that on and reduce it a little bit further, you could do that to get a nice contrast of flavor. Okay. Just a little bit of color. Right, nice dish of wings. Then our steaks. So, got a nice fond in the pan. Just going to throw these in the wood-fired oven for a minute. Okay. They can finish in there. I'm going to take the marinade that we had, and I'm just going to deglaze the pan with it to reduce that down. Okay, so what you're trying to do is basically add extra flavor to your steak sauce. So as that cooks off, all that fond and that nice steak flavor that's stuck to the pan will go into the sauce and make a nice consistency. We have done some up ahead of time, so for the steaks, bring one out to rest for a second. We have our onion rings that we did in our honey wheat ale batter. We're just going to fan our steak a little bit. Okay. So you want to slice it up so you can get a nice, see the nice medium steak in there. And then the sauce, once it reduces down, it's got a nice consistency to it. And we're just going to pour that right over. That's Cooking with Beer 101. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Check out our website, kitchenuncovered.com. See you next time.